Hello and welcome back to Making It. My name is Mirabelle, and today we have an episode featuring composer brothers Brian and Caleb Chan. They've worked on various TV shows and films, including Panhandle, 50 States of Fright, DreamWorks series Pinecone and Pony, and Team Zenko Go. They've been nominated for the Canadian Screen Awards, and I think they are great representation for the Asian Canadian musicians out there. In this episode, we explore the paths that brought them to where they are now. In the last episode, we also talked to a film composer, Miriam Cutler, and she shared her unique journey, and I think it is wildly different from my own musical path. But I think today, with Brian and Caleb, we share a more somewhat similar path of growing up in a musical environment and then proceeding to study classical music in university. And then, they continue to make their way into screen composing. We also dive into their dynamics and workflow as brothers, discussing the challenges and benefits of working together, the way that they communicate and everything, and they share their experiences in the industry and give insights into what it takes to be a successful film and TV composer. So if you enjoy this episode or this podcast, please rate and review on your preferred listening platform. It's out everywhere: Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever. It's also on YouTube if you want a video version where you can see our lovely faces and you can leave a comment. I'll say hello back, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Making It. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of start off just by saying where we met, and we met at VIF, which actually a lot of guests this season are going to be all the composers I met at VIF.
So we've all infiltrated your podcast.
Yeah. It's great. It's really nice because we met at the SCGC, the Screen Composers Guild. They held a mixer before VIF actually started.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into Caleb first, and
That's right.
You already knew me.
Yep. By way of Adrian, I believe. I think I saw that come up on somewhere. And he's always got great things to say. So I tuned in, and there you were. And then, pretty shortly after you were at VIF. So it all kind of worked out.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
And it was really nice that both of you introduced me around to everybody kind of at that mixer. It was really fun. And
of course.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, you were standing at the doorway there. And
you were the first person that I ran into, I think.
Maybe that's the strat. That's the strategy.
That's right.
You just stand at the door so that you meet all the people coming through.
Yeah, you're like a greeter.
Yeah. That wasn't planned.
Hey, would you like to be on the Making It podcast?
Yeah. Most mixers I'll be at some corner of some sort. So, just gravitates like a bass frequency, just gravitate towards corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was fun.
It was awesome.
Yeah, you guys gave some really good talks at VIF. You guys were part of the panelists and breakout sessions. That's cool.
Vancouver International Film Festival.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great festival. We were happy to be. I think it's our third year being somewhat involved. And we had a little bit more to do this time with talking about some of our shows, and also it's our actually first real in-person paneling in person. Last time we did it was during the shutdowns, and so we didn't really get a chance to meet everybody in person. And this time was very neat to be able to host the breakout sessions in a room full of musicians and kind of feel the energy in a room. It's a lot different than feeling the energy on Zoom.
Is there even energy to feel on Zoom?
Yeah, it's not. It's just
trying
digitized.
to feel it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't I don't know if it has to do with all of our ethnicities, we're all Asian or what, or maybe we're all classically trained or something. I just feel really comfortable hanging around you two.
Yeah.
And,
it's definitely because we're classically trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. and we like rice.
Is it because you smell my lai wang baos right here?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Is that from? Did you steam those just now?
Jen's mom steamed them.
Oh, okay.
They're babysitting for me, so.
Oh.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
Yeah, there's something to that though, for sure. Like the camaraderie around being, people that you can relate with, and generationally too, and also the things that you do and what your hobbies are, and then on top of that, to be able to have a relative understanding of shared experiences goes a long way. Which is why the corners are my favorite place to be in for mixers and parties, and the doorway is for you, right? So,
I mean, hey, there were a lot of people there, and I walked up the stairs, and there was just no way to. There's no in.
There's no way.
I was just stuck there.
It's like a bus. Yeah. It's like you're like
exactly.
You're like stuck at wherever the last person was.
Yeah, and I saw Adrian on the far corner. I was like, I want to go say hi to Adrian because I haven't talked to him since the podcast recording, but he's like all the way in there.
Yeah.
He slowly made
one of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it was a great time, and yeah, thanks for bringing us on for this, and you've been doing some really amazing things with getting some real talented people on, so it's a bit humbling to be part of that lineup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. You guys are amazing. But can we bring it back to classical times and classical times? Back what were you guys doing before?
Like the 70s.
Medieval times.
Yeah.
I feel like before you guys got into film scoring, what led you guys up to this point? A little brief history, I guess.
Our upbringing.
Yeah.
We're brothers, for one. That hopefully is apparent.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? It's news to me too. Well, Brian, you were there first, so why don't you?
I mean, we were always just mucking around music. I mean, we kind of came from a musical family. So mom was our piano teacher. And
Same.
Yeah, and it's funny because unlike many Asian parents, they were actually not tiger parents. Like they were opposite of tiger parents, which is, I mean, not completely opposite. Like they would ask us to practice all the time, but in a joyful way, they really enjoyed music. So it helped us because there was just music around the house all the time.
Mm.
And then yeah, so we started piano at age 3, 3, 4.
Yeah, maybe perhaps even earlier, maybe 2. Well, I don't know. Whenever fingers start moving
out of the womb.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. By the time I was born, you were definitely probably doing something. Musically, and but they had a very big appreciation for the Western classical tradition. I think that's quite normal for that generation to see that as something that's very worth pursuing. So, mom taught us piano in that stream, like reading music and playing the notes. And then pretty soon we diversified into, you see cellos behind Brian there, like he picked up the cello. He actually picked up the violin first, and then moved from there to the cello. And then since there were violins lying around, I guess they just gave that one to me, and it's like, here, you do the violin then.
Hand me downs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then our sister, who's just a little bit younger than me, she stayed on the piano. So the three of us had a little bit of thing, like a trio thing going on, in terms of, just nailing these classical charts, and continuing our studies with those instruments. That pushed all the way through like elementary school, high school, and into university, where Brian, you were the first to kind of get to that point where it was like higher level musical training and background. So that our classical days, they reached into our adulthoods, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing at one point we were going to music school. We went to Vancouver Academy of Music. Shout out. But we were part of like technique class and then the orchestra program there, which is great because we got to play at, the Orpheum Theater, which is like the premier theater of Vancouver. And we're just like wee kids, so really appreciate that program. But then I think we kind of knew early on that our interests were not just in classical, like because we got like this our dad bought us this Yamaha porta piano, whatever, the keyboard, arranger keyboard, and those ones that you can just press the auto accompaniment. Ooh. And then it just plays stuff for you.
Wow, that's like high tech.
Yeah, like 16 beat shuffle, and then auto intro fill, and then the ending, and then you're like, oh yeah, I just made a song and you didn't do anything. But we got really into that, like in high school. I did. And then we figured that we weren't just I guess we weren't really cut out to be like just narrowly classical in university, so we started exploring. Yeah,
that's cool. And then because you both got your masters, but like Caleb in composition and
that's right,
Brian in sound engineering.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. How did that?
Well, at that point, I think we were, as Brian was saying, we had started to walk into this realization that being a classical musician is really freaking hard. Like to rise to the top of everybody who's ever studied classical music is like very tremendously difficult. And realizing that one, our interests weren't just firmly in that world, that we do have other things that we want to do musically and artistically, which became two, not spending enough time in that world to really hone those things to that high level. And I think one of our greatest realizations is that we should maybe quit a little bit before we get way lazy. Too far and get outclassed, in mid-career, and so we kind of both tangent, made a bit of a tangent, not really by I wouldn't say it was, for me at least, maybe for you it was a little different, Brian, but for me it wasn't a well thought out decision. It was just more like I think I'm not that great, and so at playing this instrument anyway, so I'm gonna try do other things and see if I'm getting the same enjoyment or if I'm getting a little bit of a different satisfaction from, let's say, writing music. And so that happened for me in about late second year, early third year. And then from there, I kind of continued to pursue composition. But the recording path for Brian was kind of like this hobby of ours that Brian had first kind of started to take on as a high school kid. Which led him to, you can talk about how your path led you to kind of your masters and
okay. So before all that, we're just really like, we're kind of lazy. So every time we had like a system going on, so we were supposed to practice after school. This is high school, and the TV was upstairs in our parents' bedroom, and then the front door was like a straight shoot stairs up the bedroom. So all three of us would watch cartoons, but have our music like our stands have music on it in our bedrooms, and then one of us would take the shift in watching like when mom and dad comes back,
and peeking out the blinds, like in between the blinds.
They're like, they're back, and then everyone just rushes back downstairs and like into their stations.
Yeah, we'd have it all down to a T. Like our instruments are all open, strings are wound, like the bow is wound, books are open as if we're like mid stride. And so when we get down there, it's like you jump right into the middle of the phrase or whatever.
Song in the middle.
You just start right in the middle as if you've been playing it for the last 2 hours. But yeah, that's the moment. I mean, that was like, we weren't even double digits in age yet, I think, for us. Like we were like just, still in elementary school at that time. So I think that we should have known earlier on that we weren't cut out to rise to the top.
That has like the same sort of vibe as rushing to cook the rice, put the rice in the rice cooker.
Yeah. Or to thaw the chicken and it's way too late, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta like put it in scalding, boiling water and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like it's because we know that you went and did your actual master's in flute performance, so your path must have been very dedicated level. in that way, and kind of the pursuit of that singular prize of being a master of flute.
Yeah, I guess like now I can. It's kind of funny that my Twitch viewers they're just like, you're a master. Like they can call me a master. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird, but yeah. Because I really don't feel like I've mastered anything, but like I've always done composition on the side, and I've gotten myself into all this sound recording stuff too. So like what you guys have done, I guess professionally in the school academic realm, is like what I always wanted to do. But
Except you were too good at flute is your problem. You own that way too hard.
Yeah, I was so good that
that's where it went wrong for you. It's being too good.
Far from it. I think that it was just easier in a sense to just continue on in like what I've always known, and it's less scary, I guess. But then now that I'm out of school, I am putting a lot more time and energy into the composition and the recording and everything. So I don't know. It's interesting to see like how our different paths kind of still have similarities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean we're kind of just playing with the same pieces, but at different iterations of it throughout our lives. I mean, like you said the word safe. Like to be honest, I think we felt very comfortable in academia, and so. Yeah, even if it was switching out a performance stream to a more, composition or sound recording, that was still a very safe decision. Like we're sticking to school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know we're not hard. Like we know we're just a bunch of artsy school kids. But we played it very typically that way, which ended up just taking its own turn later on in life, but by and large, like our path has been very normal in a sense of what a person would do if they took the school stream of doing music. And we did all that. We tried our best to really do stick to the script, and even if it was little pivots here and there, the script was already laid out as far as like taking us from when we were kids to when we graduated from university or our graduate programs.
Mm-hmm.
It was Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
it was for me though. I don't think it was as much of a script as it was just I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and it was like it was the easiest.
That is the
thing.
script.
That
who the F knows? Do this if you don't know.
Because like honestly, like in grade 10. It started playing for indie rock or folk groups. Like I played the cello and they're like, oh, we want some strings. So like went in the studio and I was like, okay, this is the first time I was like, this is so far from like what I thought. Like there's like expensive mics everywhere, and I couldn't like picture myself there without having like loads of money, or there's like no way. I didn't know how to get in. And then I went to record at another guy's house, and it was just like his kids' toys were all over the floor, and like and his wires are running down his basement. And I was like, okay, maybe this is like a viable way, but still, like seeing it and like doing it ourselves was so like the disconnect was so high that school just seemed like the next natural solution. But obviously, like it didn't. The entrepreneurial spirit wasn't necessarily developed from school, as you know. But.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair though, you like just to give Brian some more credit in where this path has led us both. This is the early 2000s, and everything that he was talking about with his first experience at a home recording studio, which is in the early 2000s was like just coming up. Things are starting to become more affordable at that point. where people can really start things at home. And that's kind of when Brian started to invest into that as a hobby. And being able to build those pieces at our space, and our parents were very gracious to have like a space there for us to just use. It doubled as a laundry room, but it was a very big kind of a recreational space.
We call it the family room.
Yeah, the family room. Yeah, and then we just like took it. We just annexed it pretty much. Unfortunately for a sister who was like, just took the biggest space in the house and just used it for our own purposes. But yeah, I mean, at that time it was like piece by piece, every year be a little piece added to the studio. And Brian took like the majority of the lead in building those things, like knowing to build a computer and getting monitors, getting a mixer, getting interface. And
so we were using Adobe Audition before it was Adobe Audition, so it was called Cool Edit.
Cool Edit, man. Like that's like the OG cool. Before they got bought out by Adobe, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I remember like just taking all the hi-fi stereo equipment that wasn't connected to anything and just putting it there just because how it looked.
Yeah, it looked good.
It looked cool.
Looked dope.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
honestly, we got onto the topic of Jonas Brothers on my Twitch stream the other day somehow, and they had a TV show just like Jonas or something, whatever the title was, and it was just revolving around the Jonas Brothers, and it was a fictional kind of show. And I thought the set was so cool. Like they had an amp on the table, they had like their little recording setup, and so I just put an amp on the table.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
I wasn't even using it. It just looked cool.
Yeah, faking it.
You gotta look the part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really the high school like underpinning of our experience, like of still doing the classical thing, and at the same time like starting to build this other thing that was going on, which for Brian, he took it way more seriously than I did. I always just used it after he was done. I was like, I came in and just like hung out and toyed around with the stuff, and then and then Brian would be the one that's like in there like 10 hours a day. In between meals he'd be in there after like staying up to 2 a.m. And so like when we kind of got our paths kind of hit university and what to do after that, and Brian pushed that way, it was very much because of that beginnings. Whereas I'm always the one that can't be bothered between the two of us. So I was like, composition, you don't need no tools. You just kind of need like a brain and some paper, right? And a pen.
That's very true though. It's actually true.
And so that's kind of like my creative energy is like very much so what don't I need to be creative? And so our like the separation between Brian and I are very much to this day like kind of in that sense. And composition for me is like I can still be creative without using all that stuff, and so I started writing music and kind of investing in that stream of things, and still kept minimal. Like I had a mic and a little interface throughout college and university just to record ideas and produce. But that's really really much it. Well, at the same time, Brian was over at McGill with like the state of the art studio equipment and learning how to mix on these like massive boards, and so he really got that under his fingertips.
That's so fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So coming out of your graduate programs, did you think you would get into film scoring, or like what were some of the kind of career paths that presented itself?
Yeah. Well, that's so there's where like serendipity and kind of training sometimes coincide in unexpected ways. Film scoring, at that time I went to U of T, University of Toronto, for composition. Yeah, shout out. You and I are both alumni. Yeah. Shout out. But they didn't really have a developed film program. All they had was one course that was an elective that kind of filled in the smallest gap in what that world could be. But it was pretty far from my psyche at that time. And, it's like before school, I didn't know what I was going to do. After school, I had the same thought, like, what am I going to do? moved back here in Vancouver, and just an old college friend had a connection into the film world for a composer who at that time, a songwriter who at that time was looking for a little bit of help. And so that's where I jumped in, not knowing too much about that world at all. Mm-hmm. And years later, here I am still doing it. But yeah, very much so. It was kind of being at the right time at the right place, and just happened to have some of the skills to make it work. Because as you know, this world is kind of a combination of being able to do production work, but also being able to write and having some hard skills and soft skills to support both those aspects of the work. And so I just happened to be an okay candidate. But it was very humbling, coming out of school, expecting to write concert music and orchestral stuff, and now being in a position where I can barely write music for cartoons, for like animation for like 8-year-old girls. Like, found that totally stressful and hard. It's very humbling to jump from that place to like now finding it a challenge to even do the most basic, scoring principles. And so that was kind of my rude awakening to the film world, and trying to make it work ever since.
Yeah, Brian, what about you for like sound engineering?
Yeah, I mean, I always liked gear. So, and I was just like, oh, I need to go to a place where I can learn how to use all this stuff. So I went to McGill program, and it was great because they did have all that stuff.
No shout outs to McGill because I didn't go there.
Yeah, no shout outs, zero shout outs. It's too cold. It's too cold at McGill.
Yeah, it was cold. Yeah, great program. But one of the first things that was hammered into me at the program was that good gear don't make good music. Because the first year they make you do a qualifying year, which is you basically everyone's assistant or everyone's assistant, and you have like shit hours and you have shit gear, and then they're like, oh yeah, you can just record whatever you want. And I realized, if the song's good and the musicians are good, like, it doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. So because before I would always say, oh yeah, maybe if I just get one more, like I had 10 amps, and maybe if I get one more amp, I'd be amazing,
You got to put it on the desk too.
Yeah, and not have it hooked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, it took a while. So I went to the place that had gear, and learned that. But then afterwards, like when Caleb went to do his composition degree, he had one mic, and then he recorded Arcade Fire's cover, like I think it was Funeral, and it was like amazing. Like it was like one mic, and it was really, really good. And I think I listened to that and I was like, oh yeah, maybe actually it's about the music, and so for me, even though I loved recording, I knew I kind of missed making the music myself. And so after school, I was a recording engineer for CBC Radio for a bit, and just as a freelancer. But when the opportunity came to join forces, jumped at it because, I wanted to work with my brother, and also just like wanted to make music again.
Oh yeah. Do you ever? I mean, I think I asked you this before at VIF when we did that quick little chat, which I still haven't posted. I haven't looked at that video.
Yeah.
So you looked at it, and I was like, does this sound out to snuff? You looked at it. Yeah. You just pressed delete right after. I don't know I don't know what happened to it. It's gone.
Honestly, I did watch it, and then because I was just holding the camera, I didn't have a plan for this, and you guys were the only ones that I had the opportunity to be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to just answer a couple questions for my podcast thing? So I was just holding it, and I was talking to you guys, and you're answering, and then you can see the camera slowly tilt down, and it's just like pointed at your torso for like a solid minute or so.
That's hilarious.
And then it like slowly comes back up.
And that's when you realize it was our bellies talking the whole time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing camera work.
Amazing. So good. Do you two ever, get in disagreements with your work, or like just butt heads about something, about a project you're working on, or taking on a project that one of you doesn't want to do, or stuff like that?
I say fairly constantly.
Yeah,
butting heads. Butting heads. I think before we started, I had worked with the other composer for about 7 years, and then at that point, I'm like, okay, I think it's really time to just go off and do my own thing. And at that time, I remember thinking like, okay, you know what, I can do my own thing, or we've always had the dream of partnering up and doing it together. So it's like, okay, either I go off and do my own thing, or I get my brother on board and we can do something together. And at that time, he was like, first call in Vancouver as a recording engineer. So that would have meant he needed to kind of drop that side of his thing to come work, alongside me writing music for who knows what at that point. If we're gonna just start from scratch. At that stage, we were thinking like, I remember thinking like, well, we're so alike. This is gonna work like immediately. It's just gonna be, the way that we've always done things, and it's gonna be just so easy, the partnership. And I think what we found out, it's like, oh, there's a lot of things that are different now that we've grown up, and our personalities are a little bit more pronounced in different ways, and really those are the moments where how we see things might differ. What we've got with us, it's like we share very much the same values and integrity about what music should be like. But how we realize that has been, a little bit of a work in progress. Like we mentioned before, Brian's a guy that likes to have everything at his fingertips to access and be accessible, whereas I tend to move away from that. I like to start from a blank template where there's nothing and just trying to see what happens. Brian likes to start with like 1,000 things in this template.
I'm just not as fast of a button masher. That's probably why.
Yeah, XXYY. That's all you gotta do. But yeah, so even simple things like that makes the collaboration sometimes a little bit harder to navigate, just because on a very fundamental principle level, we have different ways of working, and we have different ways of understanding scenarios and different paths that we might take if we were individually managing our own careers and our decisions. I think what we've come to realize is how to put those two together and make a consensus about something with each other in mind, which takes more time, but it's also more rewarding in that we understand that we're on the same page after the same things. So meanwhile, like we might not agree on exactly how to get there. We agree on the destination, and sometimes we'll do it Brian's way, sometimes we'll do it my way. And most times it works out. Like there hasn't been a time where it's gotten us into so much discord that we don't actually get anything done.
We're on Discord though.
Yeah, we're on Discord. Yeah, just arguing because it's like the platform to do it. But yeah, so it hasn't gotten to the point where we don't know how to act. But it's definitely a few times it's gotten us to like pause what we're doing. We got to stop. We got to figure it out, because this is not helping like either of our scenarios to, just yesterday we had a chat where we had to kind of like hit pause and figure some kinks out and just get realigned and reestablished as a partnership. Because it's, I think for me, I realize things about myself too. Like I actually probably am not a great partner because I'm a bit of a lone wolf. Like that's an area that I need to work on, knowing that I've chosen to be in a partnership, yet for some reason my default mode is to be alone in a dark room, and I've been like that since I was a kid. And it's just like, and Brian's the opposite. He likes to be involved, get everybody's opinion, and I'm the opposite of
like
that.
in a band.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what do you think this? Blah, 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 blah.
Are you introverted and extroverted, or
it's not so simple as that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm curious now.
I think base mode. Well, we both have tendencies of both. What would you would say? Your energy comes from extroversion,
probably
right?
51% extroverted. Yeah.
The 1%.
The 1%. Like I'll need a lot of time alone, but I get my energy from being with people for sure.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But not too much, like in the corner of the room kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, but still need to be in the room.
Yeah. You're quite, you love, when there's, like VIF was a time where you really came alive. After having spent months like just hunkering down on a series, like being in a room where there's energy to be felt, like that was a situation where that really speaks to you.
I mean, that was my motive. That was my work every day for years. Like I was there capturing great artists. Like we were always talking to people and feeding off them and trying to create something together that makes sense. And when you're a composer, sometimes you like don't do that, right? You're just in your own space, which is great as well.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, I'm with Caleb on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean it is like a default for a lot of composers to, really, really guard that part of the work, because it is like sacred to us. Being able to create something on your own accord and do it on your own terms is kind of like the goal, right? And so when you allow somebody else into that process and who might have different ideas, like there's some giving out to do and reassessing those priorities and what I would hold dear for myself, and be able to share that. It's another joy of its own, but it sometimes conflicts with the base desire to just do everything yourself. And I think maybe you're the same way. Like I think my base mode of functioning is like bedroom musician. Just like stuff me in a bedroom, nothing else. Like I'll just make music if that's my only thing I know how to do. Like and letting go of that sometimes when there's more than one person in the room now, and now furthermore you have to collaborate with people outside of that room, and that's all part of the work that I think personally it's been a learning process for me, and it continues to be. But it's got so many rewards that things come out of it that are way greater than just the one thing that you can do in your room. So
yeah, definitely worth it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because like I know what I've done a couple of co-writing sessions now, but I mean like online with people. I haven't really done that many in person, but still like like I'd rather just do my own thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but like so I know kind of how, and it's different with everybody that you work with, but so I kind of know like the co-writing process now for songs. But like, what do you guys have, like what's your typical workflow when you're co-composing, you're working on a score together?
I mean, I think there's a lot of give and take, and we actually don't write together most of the time because it doesn't really work that way. I guess we synchronize our sonic palettes, so at least we're speaking the same language, using the same instruments, and then we like maybe write a theme together and then just go off on our own and initially listen to each other's cues, try to get to the same place. But Caleb takes a cue and I take a cue. Yeah.
There's definitely I think the starting a show and doing it now multiple times, multiple iterations over with different shows has kind of taught us what our strengths are in a way, and weaknesses as well. For me, I will always call it quit before Brian on most things, because Brian's personality and his skill set is to take something and like go in the long haul, like really go like the marathon with this. Like he'd be on mix 2013 and like and still finding something wrong with it, because that's the training, right? That's like training on top of personality type. And
so it's actually a weakness.
I think Brian, no, I mean, at some point it becomes a weakness, and I think that's what we realize. Like, but for a long time, it sustains there as a strength, and to be able to like sonically pick things apart until they really make sense and serve its musical purpose. So that's always been Brian's strength, even when we were kids. So he's always been more of like a perfectionist that way, and really strive to have this thing be literally the best. Like, I'm not talking about like the best that it can be. I'm talking about like objectively the best. Like that's like I think like his goal, right? End point is like, but then everybody needs to agree this is the best before he calls it quit, right? Whereas for me, I'm like a fast twitch. Like when we every time we play foosball when we were kids, like I just shoot the ball every single time, without even really really like developing much of a play. Like, and I think for me, it's also where my strength comes in is having that fast reaction concept for something. So when a pitch comes in, I think it tends to be like it tends to arrive in my head as a concept idea for a score faster. And then what's great is then like I can have that concept, which then gets processed through Brian's like lens of
rabbit hole,
making it sound and sonically like very, very amazing and appealing to listen to, and like we've and kind of polished that way. And so like it tends to be around that process, I think, for us when we start something. And for better or for worse, like we're in an industry where time is of the essence a lot of the times. And so our strengths really have to be in play for it to work as a partnership. And so where I get a fast reaction to something, and where Brian can then really flesh it out and make it really great, it's like the collaboration of those two things put together. So the weak point of that is like we know where things might break in our workflow. Like if we're into, yesterday, this is kind of the conversation that we have. It's like literally yesterday, it's like, if Brian can't let go of a mix, I think it's my responsibility to step in and be like, I think mix 93 was it. Like it might have even been mix 5, but
it most likely is mix 5.
But I think like that's, and then he has to step in and do the same for me when my weak points are engaged, right? So I think that's a collaborative process that we're partaking in, and learning how to communicate that has not been easy, because it does get frustrating, when we both have things that we're not willing to let go of, or it takes us harder to kind of let go of. It starts to get into a territory where we're like, okay, this really matters, but how do I communicate that it really matters without devaluing what the other brings to the team, and but also highlighting that together we're better in this way. But at some point we got to let things go too. So that's frequently I think are the conversations that we share.
That sounds kind of nice. I know that like that's a struggle, but it sounds like I could probably use somebody to tell me this is good enough. Like just stop remixing it and stop and just stop, let it go. It's good enough, But I can also see how that could get really frustrating and really difficult to be able to just say that. And
I mean, it's like, it's trust, right? If we don't trust each other, none of this will work. And the same token that we tell each other it's good enough, we shred things to bits, before we can get to that point. And trusting that when we do shred things, it's not because I hate you. Maybe, I don't know, but you don't know that. You're trusting me that I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like for the sake of the film, which is outside the both of us. And so like really keeping those relationships in check matter in terms of how we arrive at something that we're both proud of, instead of just sometimes you don't want to step over someone's toes, and so you just let it go. But if we're rigorously working that out as a relationship point, it'll help the music go a long way. But yeah, we're not even talking about music. We're just talking about like how to be brothers, really. We're just this is all just talking
about a relationship.
How to be
right now.
I guess we're not even talking about making music right now. But
well, bringing it back, like coming from a production standpoint, like the same idea about good gear doesn't don't make good music is the same as good mix don't make good music either. You know, we kind of had to experience, or for me, I had to experience it firsthand, where we got like that thing that we shared in VIF, Pinecone and Pony. The first pitch of that was not a good mix, you know, but it was somehow I think we got the heart of the show, and that was it, you know. So like I have to kind of reel back from that and look at it and say, you know, what do people really care about? And is it your sonics, or is it like how late you stayed up last night? Or is it like the, you know, the simplicity of, you know, the melody, you know? So
yeah, I was talking to Kate McGill on the podcast and talked a little bit about mixing our songs and how, you know, you could get so obsessed with the mix and the recording part too, like mouth clicks and weird noises that like seep into your recording by accident. Like that happens all the time, and if we're so perfect about it, we're probably never gonna get a song out, right?
That's right.
Completely.
Yeah.
But it's a dance though. Like sometimes being perfect about it, it's not for that song, but for the next one that you'll do, you know? Because it drives you to strive for something that's outside of your immediate achievable moment. And so like, yeah, I tried my best 6 years ago on something, and, you know, my best wasn't that great. But, you know, if I keep doing that, you know, 6 years from now, that's going to pay dividends in the progress, right? So it's, I think there's some merit to going a step beyond your immediate capabilities and pushing through to get there, even though, yeah, maybe you should have dropped it. But you know, that extra ounce of effort you give might come back and return in some way in the future, in terms of it might come easier again. You know, if you have to do the same thing and you push through it once, you know that you can reach there. And kind of, I think maybe composing in this world where there's deadlines involved and there's other opinions involved, helps you create boundaries around yourself as a musician, where you can safeguard your value, but also know what you can bring at any given point, and be able to confidently stand behind that and be like, yeah, I can bring this shit because I've done it before in my own time, and it took me this amount of time to get there this time, but I know because I've done it, I can get there in this amount of time and be confident approaching a project, and kind of deal with everybody's insecurities starting any project, right? You got to have something to stand behind. And those are often the times of, you know, you've done battle with yourself, and you can really appreciate that about yourself, and be able to go into something with that confidence in mind. So yeah, something to be said about being meticulous and relentless with yourself. And
case in point for pre-mixed templates.
Yeah.
Like, this is literally like yesterday. The reason why we got it to sound better is because we were working off a previous template that was our best at the time, you know. And the way that we compose nowadays is that we can stack 10 plugins on top of each other if we wanted to, you know. So maybe like we had 5 last time and we added the 6th one, and literally we added a plugin yesterday on our mastering chain that just made everything so much better. And
so just keep putting plugins in. That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Just buy more plugins. This is sponsored by Waves.
No.
Yeah. You know, I have a couple Patreon questions, and I'll ask them at the end, but this one seems pretty relevant because Chris asked, when starting to compose a piece, do you have a specific instrument or tool or software that you like to brainstorm and write with? And I guess, you know, pre-mixed templates are part of that, maybe.
Yeah.
It depends on the show, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we're, like, as screen composers, we're always working off some kind of motivation from the story. So, for instance, for Panhandle, the series that we presented from VIF, it was like supposed to be a southern score that's not country or western, and Caleb had the fantastic idea of like buying banjos. It's like, and maybe play it in a different way. And because he did that, the score ended up sounding like swampy, which is exactly like how the needle was supposed to be threaded. So in that instance, the motivation for that singular instrument led to the score, because it was the sound.
Yeah, I mean, even beyond that, kind of more philosophically, it depends on your mode of creation, I guess. For me, being a composer who I know from my own experience just loves way too many types of music to be really good at one singular thing, but enjoys many things. I think that's my pool of inspiration from that point. And so the tool really is like your experience of how you approach music to begin with. Some people really write with piano, and that opens up their world for everything, just the one instrument on a piano. But for me, it's more of the imagination. And I come from a generation where technology was always available. Even when I was writing with pen and paper, there was always technology around to make things happen. And so that becomes like the greatest tool, is to have that accessibility of knowing that at any point in time, if I needed something, it's maybe already kind of there. And so it frees, in some ways it hinders the mind from pushing beyond those bounds, but also it frees you up to be able to imagine anything that you might like. So many times it's like, okay, my experience tells me that this show might need a particular instrument, or I could go against that and try something different. But very much it's like the gut instinct for me. It's like, I got to honor that, like, first reactionary instinct, and whatever tool it might be at that point, whether it's retreating to a piano, a very classic style of composing where you jot down some notes on a pad and write down melodies, or if it's just opening up a blank DAW template. I think you have to honor that. Like for me, I have to honor that gut instinct, and just say, which way is this going? Is it voice memo time on driving down a highway? Like, just click on Siri, record this, or is it like I got to be at a DAW, so I have multiple tools available to me, or is it just imagining it free from any of those bounds? And philosophically, I think that realizing that I need to kind of get to that point A first, and push against it maybe later on, I think changed a lot of things for me, because I used to second guess a lot. I used to second guess everything that I did, because there's always an expectation, and then there's always like push against the expectation. How do I know which one's which? Like, sometimes it's like, am I pushing against the expectation because that's what I'm expected to do? Which one's the expectation, So I think it's like got too confusing for me. So my tool was like, my base compositional tool was to ignore that for now and just do what I think I can do, and then assess it maybe the day later when there's a bit more clarity, when you've slept on it, or you wake up with just like an epiphany of some sort. That's a tricky one though. I don't know. No right answers, I guess.
Yeah.
You do you is kind of the thing.
Are these expectations like from directors and from these pitches that you guys are getting, or are these expectations like from your composition teachers kind of thing?
Right.
I mean, there's all sorts, right? Like there's so many external factors, and specifically in film composing. Whereas if you're writing concert music, your expectation might just be you and the player that commissioned you, or the orchestra, having that dialogue earlier on. But with film music, you don't know who might be chiming in, from a network to a producer to a director. Sometimes even an actor might even have something to say about something, and you just don't know. And so it's like filtering out those layers and kind of understanding, on a business side of things, you got to figure that out. Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer to learn how to figure that out. But from music side of things, you kind of have to ignore that. And you're on a show for a reason, or you're inspired for a reason, and those reasons are legitimate on their own accord. I think it's worth your time to give it a shot, whatever those things are. And then later on, you can kind of learn from experience what those expectations might have been and how they communicate that. You know, a lot of times you'll get a pitch and they'll say like, hey, we kind of like these references, but can we make them fresh? like freshen it up, like for a modern usage. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, what is fresh? You know, like Stranger Things is fresh, but it's like 80s music. What does fresh even mean? Like, you know, and they'll like, there's always those kind of buzzwords that that I think experience will help, a layer of interpreting that. But
I think
you only.
Sorry, you keep going.
So yeah, you only get the experience if you give it a shot and kind of and honor the instinct to begin with, right? Go ahead, Bri. Sorry.
Well, going back to Chris's question about whether we write on an instrument or is there some kind of, you know, way? I think for me at least, it's genre based. You know, if a particular genre calls for a more produced track, then, you know, the dog goes. You know, but for melodic stuff, piano or voice memo, because I don't know, the melody is just somehow, unless the melody is supposed to be for a really particular instrument, it's just easier to sing. And easier to send to Caleb too, you know, because you can just press share. And so, I mean, like we got like thousands of voice memos that just say like whatever address that we're currently in.
Yeah. The middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Boy, number 13. Yeah, that's the one. But it's like, yeah, I mean, a good amount of self-awareness goes a long way. Because when I play piano, I know I do the same shit all the time because I can only do piano so well.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do like crazy stuff on piano. I'm only limited. And so what I tend to write on the piano sounds like what I would write on the piano. And what I do on a guitar sounds like what I would always do on a guitar, unless I'm really trying to experiment. And that's, and in that sense, like there is no better tool than just your frigging mind. Like just sit in a dark room, turn the lights off, or, you know, lie down and just experiment with your mind and see where it goes. You know, there's a reason why things come to people in showers. It's because they're away from like maybe their regular mode of functioning, and sometimes that just frees up some pathways that you weren't aware of. You know, and sometimes instruments themselves, like there's so much, you know, there's so much muscle memory to that it doesn't trigger that for the mind. So it depends on really depends on the scenario.
Do you have like a routine or anything, or you know, what do you do if you get creative blocks?
Just slap myself. Just slap machine.
Do better.
Set it up. Yeah, do better. Yeah. Apply yourself. You know, and that's what people say all the time when they're. Sometimes what I picked this trick up from somewhere else. I can't remember, so I can't take credit for it.
Just take it. It's yours now.
Okay, it's mine. Okay, so I thought about this in 3 years ago. The one time I was writing a film and I was really blocked. But I think at the end of the night, it's a very, or end of the day, it's a pivotal moment, like how you finish that day, because that might dictate how you start it the next morning. Sometimes for me, it's like leave something half done. I don't have to finish it. Like, you know, I think maybe a lot of us have the urge to like, you got to end it off and just like, you got to tie it up with a bow or like make a basket before you leave the court scenario. But sometimes it's like leaving it open so that the next day I come back knowing what I need to do, leaving it open with a purpose. That has kind of cleared up a path to knowing how to progress into the next moment of writing, because it's already kind of prescribed from where I left it. And yeah, so there are some scenarios where, you know, you're in a role and you have to just finish it, but it's also a nice little restraint to be able to just leave enough so you start the day off with some momentum, and knowing that the next day, the first thing you're going to do is finish something. And that always feels good. You know, it's sometimes scary to start the day like, I don't know how to start the next thing because I already finished something else last night and now I'm moving into a new day with no inspiration. Like, what am I going to do, right? And to get that rhythm going is pretty important. When you're day in, day out, you need to write something, and your career kind of depends on being able to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little tool that I don't know where I learned it from, but for this podcast I made it up.
Wow, so enlightening. So much wisdom.
I like that sarcasm. But I don't know, like, what do you do, Brian? Like,
I don't know. I think for the animation stuff, we have an editing library, which has like metadata that from our previous cues that we've written. Sometimes you can be inspired by that. Like I've numerous times it's like, okay, I don't want to write another angry cue in the same way. Well, how can I change this up, and then you just type in angry in the search.
Yeah. And then
you listen.
Angry and tuba.
Yeah.
And you throw a bunch of plugins on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But having a reference point really helps, I think, for me.
That's a great trick. And also, I think it's something to be said about writing music just on your own time, apart from things. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a dead end, in terms of like half finished something, but like just having a moment apart from the things that you need to do just to write something is like invaluable, because I can't say how many pitches that we've put in.
So many
pitches that we've put in that some of them make it, some of them don't, but so many of them I've like taken music from 2015, like the last 3 pitches we did, I'm sure I brought in cues or like pieces that I've done in like 5, 6, 7 years ago that were just nothing cues. They meant nothing
fresh.
at that time, but they're fresh. Yeah, and you freshen them out, and then that's how they make into the pitch. But yeah, a lot of them are just sketches, like half done, not fleshed out. But there's a nice little kernel of idea, and for some reason, like I recall that when I look at the pitch and I say, oh, I remember that thing I did, when I was at the end of my day and I just had like one little idea, and lo and behold, that was what maybe that pitch needed to kind of have some legs and finishing it at that point. So like having a backlog of just ideas, it's amazing. And not all of them will be used. I'm sure so many of them are just still going to be for nothing and just down the drain. But the ones that have made it, like they've done amazing things for just being able to showcase something that you've forgotten that you had in your arsenal or your back pocket. And it's always feels good to bring something out. It's like finding change in your pocket, it's like, oh yeah, $5, or like, your sofa, there's some like coins like, hanging out there. And that's the same kind of feeling. And that already neurologically like just jumpstarts so many things to write the next one based of that. So I'm a big proponent of just keeping things going apart from the projects themselves.
Those are really great answers for how to get out of a creative block.
Yeah, but just slap yourself. That sometimes.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. That one's the best one.
Gently, with self love, you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys talked about having all these deadlines and stuff. I would imagine that it's so easy to just get burnt out from constantly having to make music day in, day out and like meet these deadlines. And like we've touched on having to make so much and, having to let it go sometimes and move on and say it's good enough. Do you burn out? How do you just keep that fuel going?
Do you want to take this one first, or you want to?
We definitely don't feel good about everything that we submit, and sometimes that's okay, having the grace for ourselves to know that. I burn out all the time. I just tell Caleb, hey, I'm dead. I gotta go.
Oh, how do you come back from that also?
After the nap?
Just like rising from a crypt, like you would expect a vampire.
Yeah. I take off my mummy wrappings.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a good question. Well, we're still trying to figure that out all the time. I think it's different every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
contextually, it's hard to talk about music without talking about the rest of life. Because nothing that we do really exists in a vacuum of the rest of living. And often I think that we tend to feel that our musical selves just exist in the bubble, but it really doesn't, right? There's deadlines looming, and there's things that you need to do as a working composer to hit in order to continue to work. But there's also things that aren't music related that help the burnout. And most of the times you burn out because you're doing the same thing too much over and over again. And there's no separation from that, and a sense of self and a sense of personhood apart from the thing that you're doing in day out. Having maybe just awareness of that, and certainly for me, I think it's taken some time to learn that and where my actual boundaries are for stress. I can tell you, I now know that because when my son was born, I went down to Nashville to record a film score, and he was a week old. And when a baby is born, you don't get no sleep, you don't get nothing, and and the stress of knowing that I'm leaving my wife behind with a newborn, our first son, and I'm like just yeeting out of there to do a film score miles away. There's mental stress related to that, and from that experience, even though it worked out fine, but I developed like eczema from just physically stressed, right? So that I know that might have been my limit. So if I feel that again, I know where I'm at, because I've reached it, and I've kind of screwed up a little bit. I won't say screw up, but I made a decision that I have to live with, So I think those boundaries really help with burnout, because you don't know if I think most of the times people don't know that they're burning out while they're burning out. It's like, how do you know? It just sometimes it just hits, and sometimes you don't know that you've been burning out for 3 months, and now you've reached the end of the burnout, and that's actually not good. Once you've it's like a candle's completely burnt out, you're done, right?
Yeah.
But the burning out part can sometimes last a long time, and there can be ways out of that in the middle of that process of burning out, so that you don't get to the past tense of that verb and that action. And yeah, for me, I think I learned a lot of this when I was doing my graduate school too. It's for some reason I wanted to play StarCraft 2 a lot, so I spent a lot of time playing StarCraft and a lot of time playing basketball when I really should have been writing music. And I was like, why is that? Why didn't I invest more into what I'm supposed to be doing? And later on in life, I realized, I think that's me trying to balance, and now I just need to do it responsibly instead of just, there's responsibilities at play. So learning to do that responsibly is kind of our learning process. But yeah, I mean, it's not too hard to avoid burnout.
Okay, Caleb.
It's not too. Yeah, it's not too complicated. I should say, because it's hard. It's not too. It could be a very simple way, but the complication for that, it's there's no answer, because everybody feels like there's everybody addresses that differently. So I don't know, but from my experience, that's just kind of what has helped me realize certain things that help.
I think for me, it's always been about how much my identity is wrapped up in the thing that I need approval for. So I'm burning out when that affirmation is not coming when I need it the most, or the appreciation's not there for myself or from the source I wanted to get from. So say I really depend on this music to tell me who I am. And then if I'm not getting that, then I'm in the dumps, And that's a different kind of burnout than actually physically just tired. I feel like that kind of burnout is actually more unhealthy for me mentally. And it's very much almost always linked to whether I am grateful or not. And some kind of dose of gratefulness is like missing somewhere. Like, and I don't know how to get that. And I don't like, it's not like I can give anyone advice and, oh, you should just feel grateful that you get to do this. Like, it's not, I don't think it's like that. I think maybe what Caleb says has a ounce of truth to it, that you have to find it elsewhere, like other than music, or other than the thing that you thought was your whole identity, you know? Because I don't know. I mean, I still go through this every day because like I think I link myself so much to what I do, you know, and I think all of us do as creators. That's why we're so maybe scared of putting things out, or, you know, and have to go to Mix 93, you know. But that I think that like sense of like imposter syndrome just needs to be channeled back to that we just love what we do and we're grateful for it somehow. So I'm trying to get myself to feel that way every time.
Well, your mixes sound great though.
Yeah.
If you, I hate myself, but my mixes are amazing.
My identity is fulfilled.
Just check out Mix 94. Yeah. That's the one.
Oh man.
Oh jeez.
So Caleb does like basketball, and do you still play StarCraft?
No, it's.
Oh, I want to go back. Come on, Protoss.
Yeah. No, it's too. I would if maybe if maybe I didn't have kids. I think I don't want to put it on the kids, but
you're putting it on the kids.
Yeah, it's okay. When they get old enough, we'll crack it.
Okay, we gotta wait for StarCraft 3. StarCraft 3 when it drops. Oh man.
Yeah,
that's we need to take a month off.
Brian, you game?
I mean, I played StarCraft before, but you know, I don't game, but maybe I should.
Well, you know, shout out Aaron Sang. You know him from your UFT days. Him and I used to, you know, play a bit of StarCraft at 2 a.m. You know, we were out in Toronto. Made no sense. But you know, it is what it is. I think sometimes there's like this natural you know, rebellion of the mind to do something else, and I know taming that is really tough. Completely.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about StarCraft, and like I like the fact
that
I like the fact that you can play maps with unlimited resources, because you just feel like you can just mine everything. It's like a one single crystal, but like you just keep mining it and it keeps giving you like energy.
Yeah, where is that metaphoric crystal when we need it? Just need to mine that in our daily lives, in real life.
Oh man. My experience with StarCraft is just watching my brother play, so I don't really know too much about it.
No, I know. Hey, that was where I was. That was how I stared, though. I literally would pull up a chair and we just watch Brian play StarCraft until he's done, and then I hop on and do a little
the whole sound recording stuff.
Yeah. It's my whole life has been like kind of like the first, you know, many years of that has been kind of doing that and learning from that. But you probably, like, if I dropped you in a StarCraft match, you could probably find your way around pretty quick just from just the recall of, you know, all those memories of looking over the shoulder, watching the mouse clicks.
All the gamer stuff, like I got Reaper going on, the gamer personality apparently.
Do you game?
No, not really.
Like, you've got the vibe of a gamer.
I've played. Well, I really can't do FPS anymore, but like I grew up with my brother and my cousins, and they're all dudes, so like we played Call of Duty a lot, and like we do a lot of that stuff, and Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, all that classic, you know?
Do you have a character?
You know where it is.
I would play Ike a lot.
Oh yeah.
Who, like,
interesting.
Isn't that...
I'll never play Ike.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's the newer Smash Bros.
The
original
one. Original one, I don't know. I was the baby who just was like, I'll pick whatever a different character every time.
No, I know what you're random. You're hardcore like that. You're so random
because you're so good at everyone.
Also, I'm just terrible all the time.
I don't know how to play this game. Random, and, and school everybody.
No,
off
but
whatever
really,
character. Yeah.
My brother's character is Pikachu.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
That's a weird one to.
Do you guys
really good at?
Do you guys have your characters? Go-tos?
I did a lot of Kirby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't any good, but like Kirby, Samus.
I like Luigi actually because you can do the ma and then like the uppercut ma.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I enjoyed a lot of them. Anyway, Smash Bros is a good game. Good game.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I guess we'll like kind of wrap up. Have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys have done a lot of film scores and TV shows, and there's a lot of variety in the stuff that you guys work on. And I had this question. Fong also had this question. What is your favorite project? Like, what kind of project is your favorite to work on? Since it's so diverse.
Should we say the canned answer? The next one. So
of the things that we've done.
Yeah, I mean, you could also say the future ones, unless there's an NDA that you can't tell us about. But, yeah. Because like Panhandle, My Little Pony, they're so different.
They're pretty different. Yeah, they're pretty different. Do you have one, Bri, that you can say favorites? Like pick the favorite
that's
child.
So hard.
Do you have a worst one? Like your least favorite? Is that an easier?
Oh yeah, we won't say because I don't get fired. But yeah, or we want to maintain those
relationships.
Yeah. There's definitely been less appealing ones.
There's two streams. One is like because musically bad, and then second is because the work relationship's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
musically bad, like you think it's musically bad?
Yeah, or there's like not enough time to make it musically good. Like, yeah. Because like
we always blame it on other things.
Yeah, we always blame
it bad.
It's actually
it's
just
our fault. It's not our fault. It's terrible. You didn't give us enough time.
Yeah.
So now we have to make it terrible. That's your fault. It's on you. Sorry, we just made that question and turned it totally negative for no reason. But yeah, I think there are a few that stand out for different reasons. Panhandle was great because both there's a series that we did with Sony TV and Spectrum, and this is the banjo project where we got pretty swampy with things. That one was great because one, the working relationship was amazing in that they really hired us for what we proposed, what we chose, what we wanted to do on the series. They're like, yeah, just do that. And sure enough, it's like sometimes they want you to do that, but they mean something else. But the showrunners, like Carla, was so like she's experienced and she's done she's done a few more of these she wanted that, and so true enough, we just did what she asked that we proposed in the very beginning, and from that standpoint, creatively, it really meshed well. And also it was just kind of like fun music that a lot of times didn't take itself too seriously, and other times it really went to darker and more emotional places. And it's a dramedy series, so there's a fair bit of drama and also a fair bit of levity to it. And being able to do both those in one show it's pretty neat to explore those areas.
It makes a huge difference with a trusting showrunner, like a massive difference. So like every time we get some a showrunner like that, we're always so grateful. Yeah, like
there's a singular vision too.
Yeah,
like that's a really
not only like clear, but the clear in her head, but it clear in communicating it. I think that's hard because even for us to communicate in a story language is hard, and I think coming to the right vocabulary in English about something that's like not in English at all, it's like really hard.
Yeah, and with animation, I think we have to really separate it when we ask what our favorite is, because they're so different. Like you said, there's live action stuff and animation stuff that just worlds apart. Some of my favorites were we just finished, or well, not just, it's been a while, but it's just being released now. A series called Pinecone and Pony, which we did for DreamWorks and Apple TV. That one was great because of the story and the narrative. So we can't even take credit for why it was great. And it just offered for an animated series for children, for kids. It just offered so much space to explore some emotional things. And also, the one reason why I personally love animation is like you can go orchestral and you can do all the things that when you were a kid, you're like, man, that music is so like, it just gets you hype, watching all those old Disney classics because there's that epic orchestral element to it. And definitely for animation, that's like the one part in film composing that's always been there. Whereas in live action, it's kind of moved away from that in many ways, and people don't even want that because it's kind of dated, right? It's got some sense of that. But fresh. For animation, it's not fresh, and so animation in that vein, it's kind of kept a lot of that as its core musical language. And so it's fun when we come across a show that can allow us to do a little bit of experimenting emotionally, but also indulge in these big epic moments where we can go full orchestra. And this day and age, things turn around so fast that you have to be kind of well versed in programming and orchestrating on a dime. And for us, like with that's where our classical backgrounds and our experience playing in orchestras when we were kids actually make a difference. Like people say, oh, do you have to go to school? It's like, well, technically no, you can pick this up anywhere. But if you have some of this in your psyche as growing up, being around it, and knowing what instruments actually do and how they sound in real life, when you've got like 6 French horns blasting your ear off, when I'm in like the back of the second violins, like the worst of the worst, right? So I'm always by like the freaking timpani, just like blowing my ears off, and like the brasses. So like knowing how those things, like the force of those things interact, really dictate writing for orchestra and being in an animation community that continues to seek that. It's been a very transferable skill that has brought more enjoyment because that skill set is there. So yeah, those are kind of 2 more recent highlights.
Pinecone and Pony was great because of the emotional depth that they were trying to go for a kids show. Like it was like they were really, really intentional about not the nuances and not being blanket with their emotions. Like Pony's freaking cute, but it's behind that cuteness, it's like about like what being a warrior means, like in like how warriors cry, like it's like so crazy. Like it's not like about fighting, it's about like protection and like how much heart you have, like, and it's just so much
you said it, so much heart into
it's like the breath is huge. So we just really enjoyed that. I think ultimately, if there's a good story, like it makes any score so enjoyable for me, anyways. So, yeah, and we really depend on the stories.
Hey, season 2 streaming on Apple Plus. I'd be shameless about plugging this.
Yeah. Who knew that kids shows would have so much depth to it? I don't think. Do kids realize this? Is it just
it's gone both ways? I think I feel like the last decade or so, with the explosion of content, it's really gone. You get like the shallowest of the shallow shows like these days, like shows that are literally about nothing. And then you get the other spectrum where it's just a well of just, for some reason those 2 extremes have just come up as surfaces and like both achieve popularity on its own. So it's really hard to tell when you walk into a show which one it's going to be, because definitely there's been a lot more of both. Whereas before it kind of existed in a more narrow band of experiences, but now it's it's definitely exploded to mean a lot more different things and diverse too. But yeah, shows for kids, man. I don't know. Like, we always say, like, hey, let's not do so many animations. Let's, like invest more into our live action work and adult work. And, every year we just end up doing them anyway.
Yeah. And some of them are like way better than the live action stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
to
like
be honest.
so good. Yeah.
Like, do your kids watch these animated shows?
Yeah. And that's been kind of a big incentive on some of these shows, is that our 5, 4, 3-year-olds can really enjoy them.
You're just counting down there.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
2, 1. No kids.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. It's been kind of a treat, especially like because I started my career very much in the animation world, and now it's like before. It'd be churning out cartoon after cartoon and then like never seeing them ever again. But like being able to go back to some old stuff that are like 12 years old and be like, hey, your dad worked on this. That's been a kind of neat little thing to bring up, even though I don't think they care that much. But
they totally care.
Yeah, not the stuff in the past, but I mean, like they don't care in a sense that they'll still watch.
Yeah.
Stuff that wasn't by us, they're not like only like these are the cartoons. We're only gonna watch the ones that Papa and Dad write. Yeah.
Oh.
So, no, they're at a good age to bring them into our world, and they'll pop up. When we're doing some cartoons, every now and then they'll pop into the studio. It's like, hey, what's that? And we're like, it's a sneak peek, but you're under NDA now.
Yeah. It's definitely like really stimulating though. It's still like, so sometimes it's hard to show them everything. But.
Oh man.
Yeah. And we don't always get the nice polished video anyway. It might be
so they're like
blocks moving around. Like this show looks kind of shitty. It's like it's not done yet. It's not done yet, son. It's okay. It'll be way better.
That was verbatim. Your child swears.
Yeah.
What's the ratio of MIDI versus live instruments? And like, do you record all the live stuff yourself, basically, as much as you can?
Depends on the show too.
Yeah. This is truly, and not even joking now, like, depends on what they give us and how much time and how much budget.
Right.
A lot of that hinges on that negotiation stage, because you can't expect to have a whole score of live things when they give you a week to do like a giant film or an episode. So there's lots of consideration there in terms of what we can pour into it. But yeah, there's so much to be said about playing things live, because it just feels amazing when we can put that spin on our scores. There's certain levels of how we scale that depending on what the needs are and how much we get to invest into it. The great thing is, like, Brian plays cello like a pro, and he can record all all and
like, as in very like
similar to, but not exactly like. Yeah, and I play violin, so we'll hop on each other's cues if we need sweetening, particularly with strings. That's a kind of like a go-to if we only have budget or limited time to do something, but we want a big orchestral sound, or there's a string section. We can't hire a full string section, so we'll sweeten it with giving each part like 3 or 4 passes of us playing on it, and then we've got this workflow to mix it in a way that it all blends in with samples, and that essentially becomes the bedrock of other live things. There's some things that you can't get away with, like if you just need a very specific guitar thing, you just have to play it. Like this morning, I was fiddling with guitar samples, and I was like, I'm spending way too much time fiddling with the sample when I could have just played it in like a quarter of the time. And yet, I don't know why in my mind I was like, I gotta get this sample sounding exactly like how I would play it. I'm like, okay, but I can just play it. I don't know. So it's one of those sometimes
unless it's a flute. unless it's a flute, then we can't play it.
Yeah, there's
Then
definitely
you call
limits.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. We are well aware of our limits. So it depends on the score if we're writing beyond our limits. Just for efficiency, we do a lot ourselves. Just to cover the basics.
It really is about time though. Like say if you're on your third pass and then it still hasn't been improved yet, you like don't really want to record live, because and then you have 2 days before the mix, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna like just go crazy with cello for one day and like just try to play. It's like that a lot of times.
Yeah, or you'll pick a cue that's like the flagship cue of the episode and really pour some love into it, but not cover the rest of the score with it because they're throwaway moments anyway. So I think there's some discernment even within live and MIDI that highlight certain areas and just let go of the other areas that just aren't worth it, or frankly, we've run out of steam or time with. So yeah, we try to make that discernment throughout the process so we know where we're landing. Sometimes it's like if you layer a little bit of live, maybe you'll get the approval because it just speaks a little bit better to the creatives. Like you don't want to get caught be like, how come this guitar sounds so synthetic? It's like, well, I could if you just give it a little bit of effort up front, it could have saved you a lot of work on the back end of having to rehash some musical things because you were just lacking one element that you could have you could have calibrated differently in your mind. So I think that's something that we're working on to make sure we nail the discernment of when to do it and how.
Yeah. Cool. What advice would you give to someone who's wanting to get into composing for film and television, or even already in the early stages of a career in those fields? And this is again a question from Chris.
Great.
Chris, just do it. I don't know, man. This is such a tough question, and there's so much hesitation around answering it for good reason. Well, being that there is really no great advice on what path to take. And we'll pre-lap it with that, disclaimer and then go ahead and friggin' answer it anyway. So I don't know saying any of this means anything, but it's like, it's one of those things where you can't really give solid advice unless you have a conversation with somebody, because it's so specific to where they are at life, what their skill sets are, and what sort of intentions they have even within this field. It's such a wide range of people that work here and that do different stuff that it's almost impossible to just blanket it with any sort of advice. Although having said that, I think
here's the answer.
I think I've gained a lot from just blanket advice, and just things that have resonated with me that are very simple. I think maybe the best things are simple to repeat messages, as cliche as they might be. Do you have any that Brian, that you can think of that's been like resonating with you?
Yeah, a lot of them came from you.
Simple level.
A lot of them came from you, actually. One of the ones that came from you that I told somebody else recently is.
And then did you say it was from you though?
No.
Say,
no.
Hey, should have just.
I heard it once from myself. Okay, so I think it was like, make music that is simple, but make the music simple, but the execution complex. I think that's a really good one for me anyways, because
damn, I was spitting facts
fresh. Because simple message like that, actually, because of what you just said, like came to my mind, because simple things everyone understands. And in film music, if the music that you make is somehow simple, even though it can be really complex, but the main music is simple, then maybe more people will get it. And I think that helped me, because I still have the tendency to try to overwrite and write really complex things. That's like just to try to make myself look cooler than I actually am. but it doesn't work. You know, so that's one thing. That obviously came from myself.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, like I think I've been a fan of trying my best to just distill things down. The further I go in this career, it's just so complicated and so full of noise, and rightfully so. There's a lot of things that require attention, and you know, even getting started, it's like, how do you get started? There's like a billion things that you could do. You could cold call, you could email, cold email, you could just nonstop write music, you could do it on social media, you could Twitch stream it. You know, there's a million ways of doing it. How do you know, you know, which way is the right way to go? And how do you know you're not wasting your time, you know, fumbling through different pathways? And, you know, we have people that come here from sound recording careers. We have people that are like me, just from academia as a straight up composer that just studied it. We have people that come from, you know, indie bands, people that arrive here from so many different walks of life that at some point they've made it a point to arrive here and in whatever sort of luck versus effort and work ethic combination, it's worked for them. So I think it's been helpful for me to kind of think of things in terms of what's the simplest way of reminding myself of certain things, which is not advice at all. It's just kind of a mode of operation for me now. If things are becoming too complex, I just try, okay, well, too much noise, I'll just try to keep it simple. And what is that for me? So sometimes it's just keep your head down and work hard. For this first decade of my life, I feel, or my career, I feel like that's been my mantra, and it worked for me. It might not work for other people, but the message that I was giving myself was like, just keep my head down and work. I'll get there eventually. And, you know, in many ways, I still carry some of that, but then it's shift. Like midway through, I'm like, you can keep your head down and work, but nobody's going to notice you. So you keep your head down and work, but try your best to go out, step outside of comfort zone, and you know, be a little more confident in yourself and your music, and you know, and stand behind that, knowing that you can make great music. And so it shifts along the way. So depending on you know, the path that I was taking, those like little simple messages really shifted. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's terrible advice because it's not advice at all, but I think it helps a person to be able to hone in on that skill of distillation, of arriving at truths that might work for you, and things that are going to resonate on a very deep human level, like spiritual level, or any sort of level, because from there you can have some power to motivate you to work hard or make great music or pursue the things that are maybe a little out of grasp, but there are avenues to find those ways. So yeah, can't be burdened with just giving a prescription of what path to take. It's too many of them.
Yeah, I mean, even though you say it's not really advice, I think just hearing from like your experiences and everything, and what you like, what's helped you guys with your path of becoming composers for screen composers, I think can be very helpful. Like, it doesn't have to be advice by the book, but just you know, hearing about experiences is really helpful too.
I mean, speaking from like a purely musical framework, I think the thing that has helped me a lot is calibrating Caleb and my good, what is good meter, like, because I think that's so different for a lot of people, and a part of our job is to be able to articulate that, not just musically, like make it with ourselves, but with our own hands, but also verbally, how to articulate the things. So like, listen to something that you like and it's like, what makes this actually really good, and how do I, and maybe that's distillation again in the different light.
That's very much very
like
similar.
How can I break it down in meaningful chunks for myself so I can recreate that hi-hat sound, or like I can recreate, you know, this groove in like a makeshift way. And I think a lot of our copying over the years of what we think is good has led to some sort of like, 7 out of 10 version of that over time it gets bumped up, but initially have to seek that out and really like love it. Like I remember Caleb and I sitting back in the days of Napster and like whatever. What was that? What's the other one?
LimeWire.
Kazaa. Yeah. I remember having these like crazy sessions where we just listened to like, and these are really cheesy tracks. Like down to the bone or whatever. I can't remember. Maxwell, Basement Jacks, like all those like remix. Cause we never heard of this stuff before, but we listened to it and we were like, this is the like, and then we were like grooving out so hard, and like just being in love with that and remembering that spark of where that comes from, and then trying to distill it in a maker's way, like and putting it into your fingers. I think it's breaking down that process and calibrating that meter is like important for me.
And then the last step is to just sell out.
Yes.
Just do what
rom-coms.
they say. No, just do what they say. Don't ask questions.
And on
it's
that
tough,
note,
man. It's like, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. On that. Sure.
Yeah.
Just ruined it. Just ruined 2 hours of great conversation.
Yeah.
Sell it out.
Nah, that was really good. That's some really solid advice.
Oh, geez. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, we see so many great talent. Like you're doing things that we never knew was possible. Like, Twitch streaming and making things up on the fly online in front of an audience. Like what? Like that's the thing? Like we didn't even know that could be an avenue for, making music and making it meaningful.
Yeah.
Which is really like, cool. We're learning too. We're like, wow, like that's why we can't give advice. It's like shit, we didn't even know this stuff existed. What am I going to give advice on? Like we weren't aware, right? So I think maybe taking a more humble stature is better for us to realize that we don't know a lot of what's out there and how people are making it work. Like this whole YouTube thing and making a living on YouTube, that's a mystery, but they're doing it.
It's a
I don't know
hard
how.
thing.
Yeah. So it's amazing. So yeah, just you do you, and we'll just keep doing it our way because that's.
I want to interview you now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we flip it around.
I feel
the reverse.
Yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, I mean, I fell into the Twitch thing without realizing that people do that. Like I followed, as I mentioned earlier, Kate McGill came on the podcast, and she is very much why I started on Twitch. Like I watched her stream singing, and then I actually got introduced to John Ong. He's also a film composer, and like he was streaming on Twitch at the time when I like started watching, and and he was composing live on stream. And
that's cool.
He's a composer. He's a legit composer, and that was the first time that I was introduced to that, and I thought it was really cool. So I took it and I did it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, there are so many different avenues of just like getting your stuff out there and getting noticed and all that.
It's pretty amazing though to see how different people are piecing, because we're just in a copycat scenario. Like we only know what we've been shown. Like it's very hard there are very few people that can really pave a way, and those are like gems of people, like and we know we're not that. We're just going through this life, taking bits and pieces out of other people's playbook. But it's pretty exciting to see how other people are doing that, because that's in itself like a journey to see, people taking a slice of this Twitch thing, and maybe somebody's doing Twitch and TikTok, or or somebody's doing writing for library tracks, and then moving into the sync world, and then they end up in TV and film by way of that movement. So just so many cool little adventures that people are having these days.
Yeah.
Way more than before.
Yeah.
But it also makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
It's just what a confusing mess.
I think it's easy to look at what other people are doing and want that instead of whatever you've got going on already. Like it's easy to
totally
discount what you're doing.
Yeah. also no shame though. Like, we definitely have, as much as we can say we earned our careers, like we know that there's a good slice of circumstantial situations and just other factors that are beyond just our work ethic that have brought us where we are. So there's no shame in admitting that. At the same time, there's you can hold that shame and pride at the same time, because we did work hard. At the end of the day, it's like as hard as you work, you can only open so many doors. Some doors are just going to be open, some doors are going to be closed. And
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast. Sharing your insights. Yeah. Where can people find you? Find your work, find you?
Well, we have a website that we seldomly upkeep because I don't know, I don't think people go there. So it's www.chansounds.com. We just needed
original.
something. Yeah, so Chan, that's who we are. Sounds, that's what we make. chansounds.com.
Nice.
Alternatively, we're just intermittently on Instagram, Brian Chan Music and Caleb Chan Music.
So
Again,
original.
You can't mess this up. Yeah, so yeah, that's us. It'd be nice to, we're trying to acclimate to the social temperature of
maybe we'll go on Twitch
making music online. Yeah, so hit us up anywhere.
Start
live
Twitch streaming.
composing. How do you do that?
Cool. You play something and then you start feeling really self-conscious.
Yes.
And then you stop doing live compositions for a year.
Oh my gosh.
Are
you doing that? Like composing live? That's so cool.
I did it a lot in 2020. Like they were all super short, like a minute to 2 minutes long. But yeah, I would do that a lot back then, and they were mini pieces. But then I got self-conscious, and then I just didn't really do it very much. But recently I've been doing just like improvising a lot, and sometimes I'm just like chatting with the chat, and I'm playing a little guitar thing. I'm like, oh wait, hold on, this is really cool. I really like this. And I just start looping it, and then I just build on top of it, and then play some flute and improv over it. So that's like in a way composing, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like Ben Folds style, just making melodies go on the fly.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, man. I could never do that.
Do you feel like you compose differently because when you get people talking to you, or like?
Yeah. When I like, because when I was doing
B flat, play a B flat. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. When I would like state that I'm doing a live composition for this stream, that I realized like if I put a label on it, that made it harder.
Right.
But if it just like happens on a stream that I just accidentally stumbled upon a little guitar riff, then it's a lot easier. And also the chat knows because like on Twitch you can have commands like Nightbot or whatever. So like you can make your Nightbot just pop out a message into the chat. And so back then I made a thing that said like, Mirabelle is composing, welcome in. She's not ignoring you. Like she's just really focused right now. So like,
cool.
Talk to you in a second. So like,
interesting.
I gave myself permission to just ignore the chat and not really look at what they're saying. And just do my own thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like, oh man, I have so many questions. Do we need to finish the podcast first, or is it?
We can talk about it. We can put it in. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
It's the bonus deleted scenes featurettes.
Patreon exclusive.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
See, oh my
god. Shout out Patreon.
Yeah. Jack Conti, I
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we started watching that guy when he was like before Pomplamoose. Before Pomplamoose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like he was not even with Natalie yet. It was just like him. It was like, or maybe he was. We just didn't know, but it was just him in a like room full of instruments. It was awesome. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Anyways, I forgot my question. Oh, maybe it was like, do you tell people, I'm gonna go live at this time? Like, how do you like? There's a schedule.
Yeah, my streams are scheduled for Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time because I'm in Mountain Time, but nobody knows what that is. But I'm just Tuesdays 3:30 Mountain Time.
That's
and
1 hour.
Thursdays.
That's 1 hour after, or right?
Yeah.
1 hour.
You live on the Alps? Didn't know that.
Yeah. And yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30. So those two are set days, and when there are new people in the stream, I tell them, you know, like I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I also try to put it on my Instagram sometimes, be like I'm live at this time. But yeah, there's
interesting. How long do you go for?
They're about 3 hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a cool motivator to like if you're like working or something, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna have to be there.
Yeah, I didn't really plan to do that. Like I started streaming on a Saturday, and then I decided I would just keep going back and do that weekly. And I started when I was finishing up my master's, so it was kind of a fun little side thing. Like I didn't think that I would be earning any money from it or anything, but now like I'm making a bit of an income from it.
Oh, really?
Really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I wonder how that works. Like, is it the same people that come on?
Like the chatters and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, who come watch. Yeah, there's like a good core group of people, I think, who come every single time that I stream.
Wow.
And yeah, they chat. And some people lurk where you don't chat, but you're there.
I've lurked a little bit.
On my stream?
Yeah, I've lurked a little bit. Yeah, just like for like, a few minutes here and there, just to try to see what's happening. I'm so curious about it.
Can you see what people are like? Can you see who's on?
There is a users list, so I could like.
Well, the thing is, I don't have a user, so you couldn't see. Like, you wouldn't know, right?
Well, yeah, actually, that's.
How do you go on?
I don't have a Twitch, but if you're live, I can see it, but I don't have a user, so I just click on it and I just.
So also, you can't chat, right?
I know I can't chat, so that's why I'm like fully lurking.
Like real lurk,
shadows.
Real lurk.
Yeah. Lurkers, shout out lurkers.
Shout out the lurkers out there.
Wow.
You should make a Twitch account and say hi next time.
I can't risk that. There's too much of my time gone too.
Literally,
you know what I'd be doing? I'd be watching your stream. Mm-hmm. I'd be watching your stream, and then I'd jump onto a StarCraft cast, and then there goes my night. There'd be like 100% of my time is done.
What's that guy that used to do it? Snark,
Husky StarCraft. HD StarCraft. Shout out those guys. I don't know if they're still doing it, but yeah, they're pretty StarCraft 2 OG announcers, sportscasters.
Yeah, all about the APMs, actions per minute.
Okay,
but it's pretty neat though. Like you're kind of like living that life between a traditional composer where you're writing music and like you're like straddling that between like an improv performer and like a pop star in a way, because you're interacting with audiences and you have a following and there's like fans.
Talk about existential crisis.
We have zero fans. That's like you're on it. You've created this category of doing things. It's like it's kind of on its own.
It's like introvert. It's like introverted, but like extroverted at the same time. It's like, what is it? Yeah. It's like you're on your own.
We don't have to classify it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Like that.
Like you're on your own, but people are watching you.
Exactly. It's the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't like I've done performances in real life, of course, but like it's so every so often during a stream I'm like, wow, I wish I could see all of your faces and just like be able to comprehend what this would be like in a real life scenario. Because like essentially I'm just sitting in my studio. I'm by myself. Nobody else is in this room. So I'm just really, really just talking to myself at this point.
You have like 1,000 people watching you though.
Yeah.
And the feedback is it's asymmetrical feedback.
Yeah.
In that you're getting like a million comments pop out in like a text form.
Yeah.
But you're verbalizing your responses.
I'm also verbalizing the messages too, because some
that's
people
right.
just lurking or whatever who, you got to give people their context. So
you're not typing back. Are you just like talking back?
I am just, I talk back.
Do you think if we made one, people will watch?
I'll watch.
Oh, we got to hop on your stream. No, we can't do this on our own, Bri. Like, We're nobodies. We got zero fan base.
But that's the interesting part. I think we would have to compose without the showing the picture, because we can't show it. It would just be like no context for people.
I think that's still cool though. Like some people are just there to see the process or listen. You know,
it would be so boring though.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
This morning I had somebody come by, and all they did was just sit behind me and watch me work for 3 hours, and like, and I was like, okay, well, you want to come back? And he's like, yep. I'm like, okay. I just never thought it'd be that interesting, because it's so. And like when we work, it's like we do it our way, and then we just put our blinders on and we just go for it, right? But, but it's very interesting to. But you know, we understand it too, because I would want to sit behind somebody else, and watch them go at it, and just glean from, you know, and be a fly in the wall situation. We've definitely done that on other scenarios, but never in a situation where you're interfacing with hundreds of other people that are also potentially talking back in a different format. You know, that's like that's pretty unknown, but awesome at the same time. So yeah, I'll be lurking every once in a while.
I'll just randomly say hi, Caleb, just in case you're there lurking.
yeah.
Okay.
On that note,
I don't even know.
Right, in fact, this is like a 30-minute goodbye. Because it's like the end of Lord of the Rings. Like,
it was like a goodbye, and then we're leaving in the same direction.
Yeah. It's true. Are you going to your car over there? It's like yeah.
Anyway, thanks. Well, really, truly, thanks for having us on, and appreciate the things that you're doing to make this podcast happen. And,
thank you guys so much for coming on. And since meeting you guys at VIF, and you know, I got so inspired by your panels and the talks that you guys gave. So thanks. And
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao to all the listeners.